unpacking today's headlines. This is Souls and Liberty in Depth.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of In Depth, the production of Souls and Liberty. The topic today is the RFK bomb that he dropped on the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris in his association now with Donald Trump. Joining us to discuss this further and the implications of it and what it may mean. First of all, we have Trey Traynor. Just want to make very clear, Trey is on this show being interviewed in his capacity as a private citizen, although he is a member of the Federal Election Commission, but he is here speaking purely in his private capacity. Of course, he has all kinds of background knowledge of how things work and what the rules and laws are and what the implications may be, but he's not doing something politically. It's all privately, as a private citizen, which he's allowed, of course, to do. And Stephen Wynn, who is a contributor, of course, fellow contributor to Souls and Liberty. Gentlemen, let's go straight into this. First of all, Trey, I'm going to turn the reins over to you. What did RFK do, and what is the strategy behind what he has done?
Well, I think what he did, first of all, what he did was, as you said, a bombshell, but it was also a very nuanced bombshell. I don't think that he could have done any more damage to the Harris-Walz ticket than what he did today. And what he announced was that he was suspending his campaign. He wasn't necessarily fully withdrawing. And of course, now because of Joe Biden, we know what a withdrawal looks like. It means that you're getting out of the race completely.
Right.
But what he said was that he was suspending his campaign and asking his team to withdraw him from the ballot in 10 states, the 10 key battleground states, where, as he termed it, he might be a spoiler. And in those states, he was endorsing Donald Trump. That also means that he was telling his team to keep his name on the ballot every place that he had qualified to be on the ballot. And this was the biggest fear that the Democratic Party had, was that he would be on the ballot in states that were solidly blue. And so he has kept himself to be a nuisance in the place where he could be the biggest nuisance. And he's withdrawn himself in the place that could be of the biggest benefit to Donald Trump. And that really, for me, is the biggest bombshell here. Now, it's also set him up uniquely to be in a position that if this race were to come down to a 269 tie and throw the presidential election into the House of Representatives, he also becomes a key player in that area as well. Maybe not a front runner by any means, but definitely has the ability to throw his votes or his support behind one candidate. And we've seen that would be Trump if this becomes a House of Representatives election. I don't see it becoming that. But again, he's put himself in the best possible position. And from the Democratic Party's perspective, in the worst possible position for them, because now Kamala Harris has to worry about what does it look like to protect within her own party, protecting what would be her right flank within her party.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to be losing their minds at Democratic National Headquarters right now.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of people. Stephen, let's go over to you here. I mean, you watched the speech and you were his comments, and you and I talked a little bit before coming on the air, and you were just amazed, stunned. I mean, moved. All of these things. He's certainly not right on many issues. That's not the point, really. What we've been emphasizing, throughout all of our coverage of this, that, we have men of natural virtue, Elon Musk, for example, operating with goodwill. They're not right on everything, certainly. Some of the issues that we as, Christians and Catholics would want them to be more solid on. But, I mean, they're not communists, and they at least make room for God somewhere. Unlike the communists that were in Chicago this past week. Your thoughts on what he said? What jumped out at you?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm very energized having watched that. I think it was one of the best addresses that I've seen in months, if not longer. I think, to me, it wasn't a political speech. He was really he was speaking from the heart, and he was genuine in what he said. And yeah, you can tell he's not a MAGA Republican or Reaganite, anything like that. He's really what, up until fairly recently, the last decade plus, most moderate Democrats were. And he talked about when he began his campaign, he was a Democrat, but he switched to independent because the Democrats have gone so far to the left that they are actually an existential threat to the country. And he said he could no longer support that. The party of his father, of his uncle, is gone, and there's no recovering that. And then he just, the way he just laid into the Democrats, Kamala Harris, the media. He said,
yeah, I mean, he tore that entire deep state establishment. He tore it to shreds.
Right, exactly, and basically saying that the Democrats have totally betrayed their values and they are the warmongers. They used to be against imperialism, autocracy, and they are now actively working toward it. One of the key lines that stood out to me, he said, in trying to save democracy, the Democrats have set about dismantling it. Yeah. And it was so powerful. It was interesting too, when he was he laid out three key issues that were primary concern for him, that he was aligned with Trump on. One of them was the war in Ukraine, and he spoke truthfully about how basically the Democrats are essentially in bed with the neocons, the neoconservatives, and it's been their decades-long project to remake the world in America's image that has gotten us to the point where we are now. $200 billion just evaporated, sent to Ukraine, 600,000 plus Ukrainian youth dead on the battlefield, over 100,000 Russians. And I love that because it was balanced. It's not, all the Republicans it's all their fault, or it's all the Democrats' fault. He told the truth. That's what really kind of stood out to me, was the truth that he told. It was excellent.
Yeah, it was stunning. I mean, we were talking beforehand saying, is he just going to say, hey, I'm endorsing Trump and go off the stage? Or is he really going to tear into them? I think he more than tore into them. Trey, let's go back to you. Your thoughts about the impact of this on the election. Again, just so nobody can accuse you of anything, we have you on here talking as a private citizen with exercising your First Amendment right to free speech, just like you have and all the rest of us have, unless Kamala wins, doesn't win, takes the oath of office, if you know what I mean. What do you think this is the impact of this? I mean, he set it up to make it as difficult as it can be for her, because he's ticked at how they screwed him over in debates, not keeping off ballots, all of that.
Well, I mean, so first and foremost, he's probably the second highest recipient of lawfare this cycle, right after Donald Trump, because he is the one who has been in litigation the most, where either the Democratic Party itself or some apparatus of theirs, whether it be a political action committee or something else that they created, has sued to keep him off the ballot or to make it more difficult for him to get on the ballot. And in those situations, he's had to raise and spend money to defend himself, to get himself on the ballot in what should be kind of a pro forma process of fill out a form, get the requisite number of signatures, and get on the ballot. Right. And instead, he's had to fight it left and right. So I think it's a major victory for him to be able to strike a blow back against that effort. For me, one of the things that stood out the most was this call that he had against the censorship of the media, both legacy media and social media conspiring against him in his effort. Even with the purchase of Twitter by X, and he still had trouble getting his message out. It's been curtailed left and right. Yeah. He made the accusations that the CIA, the FBI, the IRS, DHS, all of those people had conspired against him.
Yep.
And put forth some evidence that he has that those organizations had worked against him. Now, whether all of that is true or not, I don't know. But, he seems to believe the evidence. And there are certainly indications that there may be those elements at play. But what he did was stand up for the First Amendment and say, you, the media, whether it be social media or legacy media, you, the media, should be questioning those in power and making it easier for those to challenge those in power, because that's what a free press does in
Absolutely.
A democracy. And so he absolutely stood up for democratic principles today of saying, you, the media, should be the most ticked that I didn't make it through, or at least into the process. And he pointed back to, the era of other third party candidates being able to get a message out because the media was allowed them to get a message out. Here, the media clearly is in lockstep with one political party.
Yeah, and I got to say, I'm pretty sure the audience knows by now my connection to the media. My whole career was in the media. I was in the media before I even graduated from Notre Dame. I was working at the NBC station in South Bend, doing minor cub reporting kind of stuff. Been in it virtually my entire life, adult life, and I couldn't feel a greater sense of punch him in the face, bash him onto the mat. Because I've been sick to death of watching my profession that I got into with a good intention just be completely, a propaganda machine of these atheist, anti-American, anti-God, anti-human forces. I've stood in newsrooms where they've cheered, 60, 70 people cheered when an abortion ruling came down, the 1992 Planned Parenthood versus Casey, high-fiving each other, crying, and the whole bit. I was just sick to death of how the media has gone. That was actually the reason I started kind of getting out of the formal media before I got into Catholic media. Steve, go ahead.
This really should be a clarion call to the media to change their ways. I mean, he, as I said before, he really has put himself in a position to do the most damage to the candidate that the media is supporting the most. And so he really took it to him as far as the legal strategy of pulling out of 10 states and staying in other states. And it should be a clarion call to them to say there's going to be pushback for your actions. And this is the best thing that he can do. And frankly, it's a doozy of a pushback on his part.
Yes, it is. It's great. Stephen, do you have a sense of how on Main Street this will play? I mean, you're not like a political guru, who's on the Federal Election Commission in his private capacity being interviewed by us and all of that. But, you're like Joe Average here with regard to this. You're like, holy crap. He just came out and tore her a new one.
Yes. And I think for, not just his followers, but, for voters who are still undecided, moderates, independents, I think this could be really effective. I'll be honest. I learned some stuff when I was watching. I mean, when was the last time you watched a political speech and actually learned something? The third item that he is really, really passionate about, he said, is the war on children. And the cynic in me, as soon as I heard that, I thought, well, yeah, but you're pro-abortion. But I shut myself up just to continue listening to what he was saying.
Right.
And yes, he's wrong on the issue of abortion. But what he outlined that it's going on in the United States today, the basically it's like a slow abortion, not to minimize abortion, but it's a slow killing of America's youth, adults as well, but America's youth in particular. He gave statistic after statistic about America's physical health, its mental health, the incredible decline, and it sounds like it's all contrived. I mean, there is a wicked agenda, as he portrayed it, behind all of this kind of thing. And yes, thank God, there are 330 million of us who survived the 9 months in the womb, but tens of millions, if not, over 100 million, 200 million, we are in trouble, basically. And you hear bits and pieces here and there about, sedentary lifestyles, high rates of diabetes, that kind of thing. But man, the picture he painted was incredible. Anyway, you get the idea. I was very impressed by that. And so, because I learned stuff there. So I think people who watch this, who may be, undecided, they may not like Trump. But if he is a man in Trump's administration fighting for the issues that he outlined, I think it could have a definite impact. I'll be honest, I've been very nervous the past week plus, seeing what's going on, with the media supporting Kamala, engineering basically her popularity out of thin air. but I'm feeling good right now.
Yeah, this is a nice thing. It's nice. Usually you don't make great news on Friday. You hide it and you get rid of it. But this is great news. Trey, we're going to wrap up with you with this question. Kamala was walking off the stage with her 8 trillion gazillion balloons. She goes to bed. She gets up. All these rumors start. He makes this tearing to shreds of her and the deep state and the Democratic Party and the whole bit. There's no way, closing thoughts, this had to have taken some of the air out of her sails.
Well, I think it certainly takes some of the air out of the sails. And what he said in that press conference was very telling. He has had not just one conversation. He said he'd had several conversations with former President Trump about the issues in this race, which shows how President Trump is trying to reach across the aisle and bring as many people on board as he possibly can. But he also said that he had reached out to the Biden-Harris team and the Kamala Harris team to say, hey, I'm thinking about getting out. Here's the issues that I'm concerned about. Can we work together? And he was pushed off to the side. And I think that continues to show you where the current Harris-Walz ticket is that they don't want to bring people on board. They want to try to win this with the small coalition of people that they have. They want to make abortion the centerpiece of all of their efforts. And I think that's what's so great about the fact that he has said, I'm getting off in 10 states where I could be a spoiler, and I'm going to stay on in the states where it makes it most tough for the Harris-Walz team to actually come to a victory. And so, he's done a major service in that sense to himself of saying, next time I make a phone call, you might want to listen to me.
In the political world, we have a word for this as we wrap up. Trey, you'll be familiar with the word. The word is BAM! They're not going to have a good weekend at DNC, and hopefully they don't have a good next 75 days either. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being on, and viewers, thank you very much. A little special edition here of In Depth. Lots and lots of breaking news. There's 75 days. Anything can happen. Just ask RFK. Keep all of this going on. This is the survival of not just America, but ultimately Western civilization and souls, which is why we have named this outfit Souls and Liberty. That's it for now. Coming to you from Houston, I'm Gary Michael Vorse. Thank you for tuning in. We will have much more as the campaign season rolls along. God love you.